Welcome back to another thrilling episode of Growing Up with Godzilla. My name is Donny Winter, and this is my show where I have conversations with kaiju fans, Godzilla fans specifically, obviously, about how they've grown with the character and the franchise over time. We are in season 2 of the show, and I've had a lot of really awesome conversations with such cool people. And one of the delights of the show is that I get to invite my friends on here to nerd out with me for a good hour. And this person today that I have invited on has been we've known each other for kind of a long time, and we'll probably talk about that here in a few minutes. But I'm just really excited to just discuss the history and the artistic visions with this phenomenal individual. So without further ado, welcome Sean Sumagaysay of Project Nautilus Cosplay. How are you, my friend?
Good. I'm really good.
It's good to have you here.
My partner here, he's not. He does not fit the entire screen, but
I'm so happy right now. I've had the honor of seeing your partner in crime face to face at G Fest in the past, right? Like iconic.
I think that was the last time we saw each other. Like I said in before recording, 2019.
2019. So okay, let's talk about the history. So I've known you probably ever since we used to dwell on the message boards a long, long time ago.
It was what? It was not. Was it RC 2000s Godzilla site or something like that?
That or Toho Kingdom or Kaiju File or any of those. Wasn't your username your actual name on it, or what was?
I had one username. I think it was like Amazing Kaiju or something. It was so cringy.
One of my favorite. I love unpacking people's former usernames because we end up discovering that they're actually pretty funny. So mine usually was Eternal Mothra. Because why not? But then I would be on certain ones where it would be like Mega Moth 47 or like really cringy, ridiculous
alter egos and
stuff. Alter egos. And I look back and then I'm just like, those were the days.
Oh god. And hyping up with for Godzilla Unleashed or Godzilla Save the Earth and all that.
Yep.
Any news of Godzilla 3D, which never came to me.
I'm still depressed about that. Still depressed. I still talk about it in therapy today, honestly. So Sean, like we actually met, I think for the first time ever at G Fest 2018.
Yeah.
Because if there was anything that was going to bring me back to G Fest, it was going to be Megumi Odaka, especially being a guest. So like I was like, you know what? It's time to go back. It's time to do it. And then like we connected there too, and it was phenomenal. We had some really great conversations. I'm trying to remember what your cosplay was that year.
I did have an Exilian outfit.
I do remember that.
Exilian with the visor and everything. And then I also had a Kiryu Squad uniform that I wore for Japan in 2017, and then I brought it for there. And then I wore it again the next year, but started like breaking apart because of the synthetic leather and all that.
Oh.
But yeah, so I had those two outfits apart from the Godzilla suit, like an older iteration of this one.
It's like I can only imagine how much stress it takes to pack those things and travel with those things.
This guy.
I can, like I've seen your posts before where you've been like, the box has arrived, like, oh my god, and I'm just like, I commend you. Like it takes a lot of fortitude, and a lot of patience, I'm sure.
Yeah. Especially like there's always that concern. Well, there's like a couple of things. It's trying to pack it, making sure that the suit is going to be compressed into a pretzel, and hopefully it does not break inside, which hasn't, thankfully. And then whether or not it's going to make the trip, TSA is going to be like, this, it's not something that we should be taking on the plane or something. I had a couple of scares.
Oh no, I can
But
only imagine.
and then obviously they would ask like what's in the box, and I would just show them photos, and then the what was it, like the person like checking the boxes are like, oh my god, it's Godzilla.
Okay, that's
So
good. I was gonna be
that's
like,
like
what was their reaction? Like, was their reaction like them eye rolling or like being excited?
no, yeah, like most of the time it's like very positive.
Good,
There
good.
were only like there was only one occasion where um, the person behind, you know, like checking the boxes was like, yeah, we don't care, it's gonna be like $200 or something, um, like per box. Uh, but the thing is with uh, taking these suits as luggage, it's oversized. It's like well within the limits, but it's underweight. So then they like make exceptions depending on, you know, depending on the person that's attending you. But
That makes sense, I guess.
so far I've had the luck that everyone has had like given that little leeway with, because it's not heavy. It's just, you know, just a big plush.
I want to first before we get into like your history as a Godzilla fan, I really want to explore your history as an artist. Like, I firmly believe that people who like cosplay is an art form, in my opinion, and I know there's a lot of debate out there, or at least there has been in the past, but I firmly believe that it's an art form, like any other art form. And I want to know what your history is in that. Like, when did you first begin showing interest in that, and then, you know, crafting these really amazing suits, costumes, outfits?
So, like to go like from the very beginning.
Very beginning.
Um, I used to, I used to doodle a lot. I mean, I doodle a lot, and I worked with clay when I was a toddler. And one of the stories that my mom likes to tell is that she would draw chalk on the floor, and I would just like keep giving her directions, like saying, "No, it's like this," and then like a moment where she was like, "You know what? Here, you do it," and then I sort of, you know, went on from there. And I was like, what, 3 at the time?
You're 3. That is
Yeah,
amazing.
I do have some sketches. They're like put away right now, but maybe we can put it like up on the edit or something.
Yeah, we'll edit those in.
Uh, like these very like weird towering doodles with like little spikes, and then it says guts or something. um, and in preschool, like I used to bring clay a lot, um, and make like little Godzilla figurines out of that. Um, but yeah, over the years, I was self-taught. Like between late high school and early college, I started getting into cosplay, because I always loved the idea of being the person in the costume. You know, seeing all the Godzilla films and seeing like some of whatever behind the scenes was available in the early 2000s. And I started off with doing Halloween outfits of, I started getting into like watching Halo stuff and playing a lot of Star Wars games. And then I started making these armor pieces out of cardboard and masking or duct tape. And I did this sort of OC stormtrooper with a green visor. And there's a story with that visor, and it's that I tried to cut up a bottle of Sprite with a knife, and I was like 14 or 15 at the time, and it slipped, and it cut open my thumb like right here, and
Oh,
just like slit the whole thing. And then I was like, I looked at it, and I stood up, and I went to the sink, and I just like washed it
you just
until,
stoically stood up and
yeah. And then I was like, start to daze out a little bit.
I would have I would have passed
Yeah.
out like immediately. There would have been no stoic moving to the
Yeah.
sink.
And, yeah. And then I was like, I'm not doing that again. So I just like found a way to just cut it with scissors or something, like find the safest way. Um, I did not like address it to my mom, so it was like to not get scolded. Um, so it was just I just wrapped it, and it was like, oh, I cut myself, and that was it. And yeah, and then I had that outfit. I wore it for Halloween, and then around the same time, I learned that I learned that cosplay was a thing, and there was a convention taking place um, locally, and so we went there. Um, my mother took me there, and I wore the duct tape stormtrooper outfit, and I saw this other guy who was dressed as Master Chief with armor that was like out of fiberglass and bondo, and then I was like mesmerized, looking at it, and then there was a pyramid head from Silent Hill as well, and some other people, um, and I got really inspired by that.
Wow.
Like seeing this, that there was this community of people who like to dress up. Yeah, at the time I didn't know that cosplay was a thing. Jumping back to high school, yeah, 2011, 2010, I did my second costume that was like from the horror game Dead Space, with the like triple visors and all that, and they were like my own iterations of it, inspired, and then it was with cardboard and like leotard fabric, and just like mashing it all together. And then I did Dead Space a second time for 2011. It was more accurate to one of the designs, and like I was like looking at every single piece of concept art and the model of the character, and then just like replicating it out of cardboard and painting it and stuff. And then I started playing with LED lights to then install it in the back. So then, and also on the visor, so then everything could lit up.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and instead of soldering, I would just like hot glue the wires together, and it would somehow work.
Like,
the connection was there.
I would rather do that than the other way because I'd be too afraid to do it the other way.
So I did that. I did a couple of things, and then my ex-partner introduced me to sewing. So then, between her and I started learning how to do some things while she would do most of the bigger like fabric-based outfits, and I would do detailing out of foam and cardboard. Like by the end of 2012 and somewhere around 2013, when they announced that Godzilla was going to come back after this decade-long hiatus,
Right.
I was like, I was like, I want to celebrate his return in some way, and it's like, how fitting would it be to just make my first Godzilla costume? And at the time, I didn't know where to start, and I looked at a lot of, I found that there were other people who dressed up as Godzilla. Over the years, I would see like on G Fan magazine,
Yeah.
people making their own, and I got inspired by that too. And I think I was watching a lot of Jacob Baker, who does a lot of suits, and he did this what he called the Hyper Godzilla.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he did a series of videos where that showed how he basically built it from scratch, and then I basically took notes from that, and then started going from there. And then from all the leaks that would appear of the 2014 Godzilla, I was like trying to make sure that all the proportions were right. And then once it got closer to the film and like the actual design was leaked and you could see the figure and all that, I based it on that. And it was all foam and fabric, and then I did these slabs of skin texture, which is like scales, and I would just like, that was like in the last couple of weeks before the local Comic-Con was taking place, and it was also like the same week or weekend that the movie was just about to release. It was like May 16, that
2014, right?
it was 2014, yeah. And I was like on a crunch time trying to cast all these skin patches to then glue it all onto the suit. One of the local TV channels, they asked if I could be there, like to sort of promote the film with the suit there. And then there was this other woman with a Mystique. She was like all body painted. She was one of the other like newscasters, I think.
I think I remember this. Didn't you go viral?
A little bit, I think. Well, the suit did, like after the fact, after Comic-Con. There was a film critic who interviewed me on local television, and then me talking about the construction of the suit. I was super shy there, and that also gave me access to seeing the pre-screening of the film as well, which was really funny on its own because it was like they had to sync up the subtitles, and then they would keep restarting. They restarted the film like 4 times after the Janjira scene. After that, they would restart the movie, and then we're like,
what?
Yeah,
that sounds like a mess. That's so wild to me. So you literally made this suit and really did not anticipate this type of reaction, right? But then it happened.
Yeah.
That is so cool. That is like, I'm like nerding out over that. Now, I remember seeing it all over social media too. So I think it went more viral than you're giving it credit. But I think in any art form, it's really cool to see that progression, right? Like you literally described like being in high school and just, doing your best, working with what materials that you had, to working with fabric, sewing with, foam, all sorts of other materials that are arguably in some ways probably more difficult to work with, right? So like, I just think it's really cool to show that progression and how like for artists, like we continually are in this constant state of growth, right?
Yeah, over the years, as I started, working on more, I actually just did like one other suit after the 2014 one, and then that inspired me to like focus more on the art of tokusatsu and the techniques that they do. I feel like I just didn't like. I not only kept growing as a cosplayer, but I also wanted to like basically educate people of the cosplay community and like from abroad of like the art of these films, and I started utilizing more like strictly more of these techniques that you would see in that Keizo Murase and Wakasa would do with their suits,
and then passing that knowledge along.
Yeah, and I currently sell patterns for people who want to jumpstart their own suits. A couple of people have shown me their progress, and it's really cool. I have like 2 or 3 patterns up online, but yeah, like I really want to like push for people to like make more like an army of Godzillas. And yeah, and it's like Godzilla's not the only thing I want to learn how to do. I also want to do like Ultraman outfits and other like tokusatsu based characters. The first version of this, the 2002 suit, I did it back in 2016 to 2017, and it was for competing for a Japanese competition. It was originally for like a preliminary round here in Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I did this whole performance with my ex-partner, and we did this Hiryu, who's like a little bit like up here. We got a little there, and I did this whole After Effects backstage VFX that we played in the final 2 rounds of the Japanese competition. And we basically had to bring like 4 boxes full of Godzilla and Kiryu.
Oh my god. Yeah. That sounds like it was a really cool performance though.
You got to see it, right?
I think I saw a video of it, yeah.
Yeah, and we rehearsed like in the hotel like a day or two before the actual like semi-final round was going on. I think we also rehearsed a bit, like in the rehearsing day, but it was really much like just moving back and forth or turning around and stuff and hitting each other. And I also tried to practice, like, if I could fall, could I get up? And that did not work.
That I'd have to say, like, that's significant to consider, because like those costumes are so thick, right?
Yeah. And all the other competitors from different countries, they had, mostly human-based or humanoid-based characters, or or like robots or mechs or whatever, that were much more agile. So their performances are their movements basically are what made most of their performance. But then us, like as kaiju, we had these limitations, so we needed the VFX to do all the complementing of the performance. So we just had to move as dramatically as possible, but not to the point where we're just gonna like fall on our head.
Right. Oh gosh, I can only imagine the balance it requires to do that, because they're probably a little bit heavy too, right?
There's like, the first suit that I had was like 30 pounds. It's not that much.
Oh, okay.
The thing is that because of like the tail and all that, and you're trying to move back, you're basically trying to kick the tail as you're walking back, and so it doesn't get caught up, with friction. And it just goes like up, and then you fall back. I think when we were in the first stage, I was walking back because my Kiryu was like punching the hell out of me, and then I fell front first, and the adrenaline rush to sync with the audio made me like go like, ugh, and then grab my thigh and like try and like get up as quickly as possible. And then the second round we did not do whatever happened at that time. Like there's a lot of things you have to keep in mind of when like moving inside of it.
Wow.
This suit is like almost 60 pounds in total with the tail and the spine. Yeah, so it's much heavier. And also,
so this one's newer, right?
Yeah. This was right after 2017. No, like I started sculpting a head for 2018, and I wanted to use it to replace the head of the 2017 iteration, and I didn't get to do that. So I just kept the old suit for 2018 for G-Fest. And then when I finished the mold for the new head, I basically replaced the old suit's head with that one and brought it in 2019. And so I made the decision to completely start from scratch and like around the end of 2019 and start building an entirely new suit, like making patterns out of the SH figure, SH Monster Arts figure, make patterns out of it, and then start making, everything from the ground up. And then during COVID, I had a lot more work time, so there was no deadline, and then during those years, so I just like little by little worked on the suit. I would let it sit every now and then a lot of the more complex parts of the suit, like the hands, the feet, some part of the tail and the spines, they were all sculpted in clay and then done like the whole process of molding and casting it. And then the rest, like the body, the torso, and the legs, and like the thicker half of the tail, are all foam fabricated. So it's foam and fabric combined, basically. Like all this whole texture here is all carved foam that I use a razor for it.
Wow, that I can only imagine how time consuming that is.
It is.
That's so cool, though.
I like literally look at the SH figure because it's like the closest to the actual suit. Mostly because Yuji Sakai works on them, so he knows the suits from every little scale. So I look at that. I look at approximations of every little bit of it, and then just like replicate it in there.
Wow.
So yeah, all this is foam, so it's very spongy, and then everything else like the hands and the feet and then the head are all sculpted in clay and then done with like stone molds to then cast them in a latex material.
I'm just it. One, I love doing this because I just get to like get into the heads of you very talented artistic people and just understand how things work. But it's also so fun to see the process too and to learn about that process because there are steps to it that I would have never thought of, right? And I guess like if you were to like illustrate a timetable for listeners, like how long would it take to like how long did it take specifically for this one?
So this one in particular took like well around 2 to 3 years just because I didn't have a deadline. If normally when I would start a suit with the intention of debuting it in an upcoming event, like the 2014 one, and then the first version, the first iteration, the 2002 suit, it would take like 5 to 7 months, give or take, because I want to start as early as possible, and then get all the stuff done. And that's also because I was like the only one working on it. If I were to get a commission out of it, it was like I would try to make it like under 3 months,
right,
at least, just because there's a clear goal.
And there's a performative pressure connected to that too. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And then you get more creative with taking shortcuts. Like the Biollante suit was like less than a couple of months to make because they had filmed everything else and then they had to film all the VFX. And they had a very short amount of time to make it. And then for most films, you have like just a couple of weeks to complete, an entire costume, and also you have a team of people working on it.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I would say like well around, like if I had a deadline, I would say, 5 to 7 months, give or take.
Interesting. So all of this wouldn't be possible, obviously, if you weren't already a Godzilla fan, right?
Yeah.
So like the artistic history obviously probably goes hand in hand with your history as a Godzilla fan. So how like where did that begin? Like how were you first introduced to the character and the franchise?
So I always loved dinosaurs as a kid, and I would my mom would put a lot of Barney in the background, as any mother would. And
oh no, it started with Barney. Yes.
Yeah. And also I think I was also born when Jurassic Park came out. I mean the same year, so that was also a source of not the best movie to start with, but it was one of the films. I remember having the VHS for Lost World.
What a throwback.
Yeah, with the 3D, with like the 3D.
Oh, I think I still have that somewhere buried in the deepest recesses of my closets.
Yeah, like my earliest memory of Godzilla was back when I was like 3 or 4. I did have a version of King of the Monsters, the 56 version, King Kong versus Godzilla, which I still had the VHS cover of it. It was the one with the blue. It was like blue with King Kong and Godzilla just like going at it.
I remember that one too. Yeah.
That one, and then also Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, and it was the one with the illustrated piece of like a green Godzilla shooting red breath at a.
Oh, that's the one I had too.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
it was like in an ocean, like there was like ocean waves and stuff. It looked really.
Yeah.
I think that was the one.
So those were my first 3 films that I had in hand that I can remember when I was like, at that age. Yeah, I started getting more invested in Godzilla because it was very different from your typical dinosaur. You know?
Right.
Like at that age, I could tell that Godzilla was more of a. It wasn't terrifying to me to watch it, but like I could get some like. There's a sense of sympathy for him that I could relate to, and so I grew more attached to the character over the years. Like as a kid, it was more of a source of security and strength. I was not an only child. I had my sister with me, but we grew up with not having a father around. He passed away like before I was born. So to me, I think that Godzilla became sort of a father figure,
Right.
Watching the films and feeling like more safe. As I saw more Godzilla films, I started appreciating more of the artistic aspect of it instead of just, the entertaining, big monster, protector.
We all love the brawling, right? But there's so much more depth.
Yeah. And I started appreciating more of the art form of tokusatsu and also like everything that goes behind the scenes, analytically speaking. And it has never left me to this day.
I love it. Well, so part of my rebellion in doing this series was to basically be a slap to the face of the people who are like, are you ever going to grow out of this? And I'm just like, no. So here's a million reasons why nobody else is growing out of it either. So validation, right?
Yeah. As a cosplayer, it's one of the... it's become sort of like my identity in the cosplay fandom is, being a Godzilla cosplayer, and I also want to grow into more, just like broader tokusatsu. But of course, I have no room for other things because he's here.
Well, it sounds like Godzilla's always going to be like your route into that that art form, right?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, you want to expand out, but there's always that like route you come back to that's significant.
It's the old reliable.
Right.